Hello, thoughtful Libra. As July 14 and 15 unfold, you may begin noticing subtle shifts that are becoming harder to overlook. A conversation lingers in your mind longer than expected. Someone's reaction surprises you, or a quiet realization settles in with unusual clarity. These days are less about dramatic predictions and more about recognizing how your presence has been influencing the people around you, and how that same process has been quietly changing you from within. If these words found you today, consider the possibility that you were simply ready to hear them. Sometimes we arrive at a message because it reflects questions we've already been carrying beneath the surface. This period seems to invite reflection rather than urgency, encouraging you to notice patterns that have been unfolding over time instead of searching for instant answers. There may be someone whose life appears accomplished from the outside, someone who has spent years measuring success through achievement, responsibility, or control. Yet beneath that polished exterior, something is beginning to shift. Not because of anything you tried to prove, but because your calm honesty, emotional balance, and quiet authenticity offer a perspective they rarely encounter. Around you, they may find themselves questioning assumptions they once believed were unshakable. What makes this connection meaningful isn't that you've captured someone's attention, it's that your way of moving through the world gently encourages deeper honesty. Like standing beside a still lake that reflects more than appearances, your presence can invite others to see parts of themselves they have long overlooked. That realization can feel both inspiring and uncomfortable, especially for someone who has relied on certainty for a long time. Perhaps you've experienced this before. Have you ever noticed someone who seemed completely confident suddenly becoming unusually reflective after spending time with you? Or has anyone ever told you that your calm presence encouraged them to see life from a different perspective? If so, you may already recognize the quiet theme emerging here. If not, these next few days may offer moments that begin making that pattern easier to understand. Before we continue, I simply want to thank you for sharing this moment of reflection. Your willingness to slow down, listen carefully, and explore these ideas with an open mind brings meaning to this space. Every thoughtful comment, every shared experience, and every act of support helps create a community where people can grow together through curiosity, compassion, and honest conversation. As this message unfolds, remember that it isn't only about another person's feelings or intentions. At its heart, it is about recognizing your own growth, honoring the boundaries that have helped shape you, and understanding that genuine connection begins with authenticity rather than approval. If this resonates with you, even in a small way, leave a comment below and write, "I am ready to receive what's meant for me." Not because you're waiting for life to happen to you, but because you're choosing to welcome whatever aligns with the person you're becoming. There's still more to discover together. As July 14 and 15 unfold, Libra, you may begin sensing that something beneath the surface is quietly reorganizing itself. It isn't the kind of shift that demands immediate attention or arrives with dramatic announcements. Instead, it resembles the soft light of a summer evening, gradually revealing details that were always there but somehow escaped your notice. These days invite observation more than action, encouraging you to trust what you're beginning to notice before you feel the need to explain it. This period seems to blur the familiar line between logic and intuition in gentle, meaningful ways. Thoughts and emotions that once felt disconnected may begin speaking the same language, allowing you to understand people and yourself with greater clarity. You may also become more aware that someone in your life has been watching you with a mixture of admiration, curiosity, and quiet uncertainty. Their interest isn't necessarily rooted in what you say or how you present yourself. It may come from the sense of steadiness they experience whenever they're around you. Astrologically, the middle of July carries an atmosphere that favors reflection over immediate resolution. Rather than pushing everything forward, it encourages you to evaluate what has been developing throughout the first half of the year. For Libra, whose natural instinct is often to create harmony, this can become an opportunity to recognize where balance has become genuine and where it is quietly dependent on keeping the peace at your own expense. That awareness alone has the power to change the way your relationships evolve. You may notice an interesting contrast emerging around someone whose life appears successful and well organized. From the outside, they seem to have built stability through discipline, responsibility, and accomplishment. Yet beneath that confidence, there may be questions they have postponed for years. Sometimes your presence gently invites those questions into the open. Not because you intend to challenge anyone, but because authenticity has a way of revealing what polished appearances cannot hide. Think of a calm river reflecting the evening sky. It doesn't force anyone to look more closely, yet those who pause beside it often notice details they missed while rushing through the day. In much the same way, your honesty may encourage others to become unexpectedly truthful with themselves. That process can feel both comforting and unsettling, especially for someone who has long relied on certainty instead of vulnerability. This is why these days are unlikely to be defined by dramatic gestures or grand declarations. The more meaningful movement may happen internally, where assumptions begin softening and long-held emotional patterns quietly loosen their grip. You may discover that someone who usually seems composed starts asking different questions, listening more carefully, or becoming less interested in maintaining the image they've always projected. Growth often begins this way almost silently. If you enjoy viewing this through a symbolic lens, cards like the Emperor can represent someone who has built an impressive life through structure and responsibility, but has little experience surrendering emotional control. The Four of Cups may suggest a lingering sense of dissatisfaction that success alone is never resolved. And for Libra, justice serves less as a promise than as a reminder that lasting relationships are strongest when honesty and mutual respect become their foundation rather than appearance or status. Perhaps the most important realization isn't that you're changing someone else. It's that your own growth has become visible enough for others to respond to it. People may find themselves speaking more openly around you, reconsidering old beliefs, or recognizing emotions they have kept carefully hidden. That doesn't mean you're responsible for their transformation. It simply means your way of moving through the world creates space where authenticity feels possible. If you've been sensing a quiet shift lately, moments when conversations seem more meaningful, when your intuition feels unusually clear, or when familiar relationships begin taking on a different tone, there's no need to rush toward conclusions. Real change often arrives like a warm summer breeze that gradually alters the direction of the air, before anyone notices the leaves beginning to move. Continue honoring your values, your boundaries, and the calm you've worked so hard to cultivate. More often than not, those qualities become the steady ground where both your own growth and meaningful connections continue to unfold. This is where the deeper meaning of the connection begins to emerge, Libra. It may not have entered your life because someone was searching for love in the way people usually imagine it. Instead, this person may have been drawn towards something they couldn't quite explain, a quiet sense of authenticity that stood in sharp contrast to the world they had carefully built around themselves. Sometimes the connections that shape us the most begin long before we understand why they matter. You may find yourself crossing paths with someone whose life reflects years of accomplishment, discipline, or recognition. Yet even the most successful people can discover that achievement doesn't answer every emotional question. Around you, they may begin noticing a kind of steadiness that can't be earned through status or performance. Your calm presence, your fairness, and your ability to remain true to yourself offers something that cannot be measured by external success. And that realization has the potential to change the way they see both you and themselves. Some people might describe a connection like this as fate, or immediately place it into familiar romantic labels. A more thoughtful perspective is that certain relationships arrive when they invite both people to grow beyond old patterns. Rather than rewarding someone's past choices, they present an opportunity to develop new ways of relating with greater honesty, humility, and emotional openness. The real question becomes less about whether someone wants to be with you, and more about whether they are willing to meet you with the same authenticity you already bring. For someone accustomed to relationships built around expectations, appearances, or unspoken exchanges, your approach can feel unfamiliar. You aren't asking anyone to prove their worth, nor are you trying to reshape who they are. You simply demonstrate that genuine connection doesn't require pretending to be someone else. That kind of emotional freedom often challenges people more deeply than criticism ever could. Your greatest strength isn't that you're difficult to reach, it's that you've learned how to care without abandoning yourself in the process. Healthy boundaries don't create distance for the sake of distance. They create the conditions where trust can grow naturally. Someone who has spent years relying on certainty or control may initially find that difficult to understand, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your way of relating invites vulnerability instead of performance. Real closeness asks each of us to set aside the roles we've grown comfortable playing. It gently removes the masks we've used to protect ourselves and asks whether we're ready to be seen as we truly are. That moment can feel intimidating, especially for someone who has defined themselves through achievement or carefully maintained expectations. What they're confronting isn't rejection. It's the realization that authentic connection begins where image ends. You may have noticed this pattern before. Perhaps people have misunderstood your honesty, describing it as intensity simply because it encouraged them to face truths they weren't expecting. Or maybe you sensed others becoming unusually thoughtful around you, as if your presence quietly gave them permission to acknowledge feelings they had kept hidden. If those experiences sound familiar, they may say less about you being too much, and more about the space your authenticity naturally creates. Like a clear river reflecting the evening sky, you don't force anyone to look more closely. You simply offer an environment where clarity becomes possible for those who are willing to pause. Not everyone will feel comfortable with that invitation, and that's perfectly natural. The people who are genuinely ready for meaningful connection won't be discouraged by your honesty. They'll be inspired to meet it with honesty of their own. If this speaks to something you've experienced, take a moment to reflect and share below. Have you ever realized that simply being true to yourself encouraged someone else to see their own life differently? Your story may resonate with someone who has experienced the same quiet transformation. As these reflections continue through July 14 and 15, pay attention to the subtle moments that seem to linger in your awareness. An unexpected conversation, a recurring thought, a meaningful dream, or even a number that repeatedly catches your attention may simply encourage you to slow down and listen more carefully. Whether or not those moments carry personal meaning, they can become gentle reminders to trust the wisdom you've been cultivating within yourself and to continue moving forward with balance, openness, and quiet confidence. As July 14 and 15 unfold, Libra, you may notice certain moments asking for your attention in ways that feel surprisingly quiet. A number that appears more than once, an unexpected conversation, or a thought that keeps returning may not offer instant answers, but they can encourage you to pause and reflect. Rather than treating these experiences as guarantees or predictions, consider them gentle reminders to become more present with what is already unfolding inside you. If a number like 714, 77, or another sequence continues catching your eye, let it serve as a personal invitation to slow down. Sometimes we naturally assign meaning to the patterns that appear during important seasons of our lives because they help us notice what we've been overlooking, whether it's a clock, a receipt, or a passing street sign. These moments can remind you to check in with yourself instead of rushing toward the next decision. Often, the greatest clarity begins with a simple pause. From a symbolic perspective, this period encourages intuition to work alongside reason instead of competing with it. You may find yourself sensing the right direction before you can fully explain why it feels right. That doesn't mean abandoning logic. It means allowing your inner experience to become part of the conversation. Libra's gift has always been thoughtful balance, and these days invite you to trust both your mind and your deeper instincts as they begin aligning more naturally. If you enjoy working with tarot symbolism, the High Priestess beautifully reflects this atmosphere. She reminds us that not every answer arrives through external confirmation. Some truths become visible only after we've created enough stillness to hear them. Alongside that energy, a card like the Reversed Tower can symbolize gradual inner restructuring, not sudden upheaval, but the quiet release of beliefs and expectations that have quietly outlived their purpose. Because of that, emotional change during this period may feel less like something collapsing and more like something settling into its proper place. You could notice yourself responding differently to familiar situations, feeling less compelled to explain yourself, or recognizing that old fears no longer carry the same weight. Growth often reveals itself through these subtle shifts rather than dramatic turning points. You may also experience small moments that seem unusually meaningful. A message arrives just as you've decided to move forward. Someone reaches out after a long silence. A familiar name appears unexpectedly, or a brief encounter leaves you thinking long after it's over. Whether these moments hold lasting significance or simply encourage reflection, they invite you to stay attentive rather than reactive. Not every experience asks for immediate action, but many deserve your quiet attention. As you move through work, family responsibilities, and the rhythm of everyday life, give yourself permission to create a little space for stillness. Even a few peaceful minutes during an evening walk, while writing in a journal at sunrise, or simply sitting beneath the open summer sky can help you reconnect with yourself. It is often within these unhurried moments that your thoughts become clearer and your priorities begin arranging themselves naturally. The deeper lesson isn't about waiting for life to prove that you're on the right path. It's about recognizing that your growing self-awareness is already changing the way you experience the world. You don't have to chase every opportunity or seek constant reassurance. More often than not, what truly belongs in your life finds room to grow when you stop filling every moment with doubt and leave space for genuine connection to develop. There comes a point in every personal journey when love is no longer measured by how much you sacrifice or how hard you try to earn acceptance. Instead, it becomes something you embody through honesty, self-respect, and emotional balance. Libra, these days may gently remind you that you're not meant to become someone else's ideal or carry the responsibility for another person's healing. You're meant to be met with sincerity, mutual respect, and the same openness that you so naturally offer others. For someone who has long associated love with control, certainty, or carefully defined roles, encountering that kind of authenticity can feel both inspiring and unfamiliar. You're not handing anyone a list of expectations or asking them to become someone different overnight. By remaining true to yourself, you quietly demonstrate that real connection grows through trust rather than dominance, and through freedom rather than possession. Sometimes that example speaks more powerfully than words ever could. While that may sound beautiful in theory, Libra, living this way, asks for a level of honesty that isn't always comfortable. Meaningful relationships require both people to recognize the habits that no longer serve them, and that kind of growth rarely happens without intention. Before someone can truly appreciate the love you offer, they often have to let go of the patterns that have kept them distant from themselves as much as from others. This is why your boundaries deserve to be viewed differently. They aren't walls built to keep people out. They're quiet expressions of self-respect that show others how you expect to be treated. Choosing not to accept inconsistent affection or emotional uncertainty isn't being difficult. It's creating the conditions where trust, respect, and genuine connection have room to grow naturally. One of the most important lessons these July days may be offering is that your value doesn't increase because someone finally recognizes it. Your value has always been there. The real work is resisting the urge to explain, defend, or prove what already exists. As you become more comfortable standing in your own truth, you'll likely notice that the right people respond with curiosity and respect rather than resistance. Those who are emotionally ready won't see your independence as a threat. Instead, they'll recognize it as an invitation to meet you with the same level of honesty and maturity. Others may still try to create confusion, seek control, or ask you to lower your standards simply to make them more comfortable. When that happens, remember that your responsibility isn't to convince anyone to grow. Sometimes the kindest choice is allowing people the space to learn through their own experiences. Imagine yourself as an open garden gate rather than a locked door. The entrance is there, but how someone approaches it matters. Some may hesitate because they're uncertain about what authentic connection requires. Others may push impatiently, hoping to bypass the work of trust. The people who truly belong in your life will enter with patience, humility, and a willingness to leave unnecessary burdens behind before asking to share your space. Healthy love should never require you to become less of yourself. If a relationship consistently leaves you doubting your instincts, shrinking your voice, or questioning your worth, it may be pointing toward an old pattern that is ready to be understood and released. Healing isn't about becoming someone different. It's about returning to the parts of yourself that were always worthy of care and respect. As you continue through July 14 and 15, notice how often your attention naturally turns inward. Mid-year has a way of inviting quiet evaluation, encouraging us to ask not only where we're going, but also whether we've created space for the life we're hoping to welcome. Sometimes the most meaningful doorway isn't the next opportunity waiting outside. It's the deeper understanding that's beginning to grow within you. This is why simple personal rituals can be surprisingly powerful. They don't exist because the universe requires a particular object or routine. They exist because moments of intention help you hear your own thoughts more clearly. Whether it's writing in a journal at sunrise, taking a peaceful evening walk, preparing a cup of tea without distraction, or sitting beneath the open summer sky for a few quiet minutes. These small practices remind you to choose presence instead of pressure. If you enjoy symbolic practices, you might write a simple affirmation such as, "I choose relationships that honor who I truly am," or "I welcome what aligns with my values with openness and confidence." The purpose isn't to control outcomes. It's to reinforce the mindset you're actively building. Every time you return to those words, you're strengthening your relationship with yourself first. Even something as ordinary as a glass of water beside you while you reflect can become a gentle reminder to slow down. The object itself holds no special power. What matters is the intention you bring to the moment. 5 minutes of uninterrupted stillness can often reveal more than hours spent searching for certainty elsewhere, allowing your thoughts to settle like a calm river after the wind has passed. People often ask when the right relationship will arrive. Yet a more meaningful question may be, who am I becoming before it does? The answer shapes every future connection. When you begin living from the quiet confidence that you are already enough, your energy naturally becomes less focused on chasing validation and more open to recognizing genuine compatibility when it appears. I once heard from a thoughtful member of our community who spent 21 mornings writing affirmations, not to change another person's heart, but to reconnect with her own. By the end of those 3 weeks, she noticed that her outlook, her choices, and even the conversations she attracted had shifted in meaningful ways. Whether or not every external circumstance changed immediately wasn't the point. The greatest transformation had already happened within her. That is the deeper invitation of this season. Whatever unfolds around you, continue choosing thoughts, actions, and relationships that reflect the person you're becoming. If this message encourages you to begin your own small practice of reflection tonight, let that quiet decision be your first step. And if it resonates with you, share a simple yes in the comments as a reminder to yourself, as much as anyone else, that you're ready to welcome growth with openness rather than fear. Libra, if you've stayed with this reflection, I hope you recognize that this has never been only about romance. It's about remembering your own strength, your capacity for compassion, and your ability to shape your life through conscious choices. You aren't waiting for someone else to define your future. You're becoming someone who naturally recognizes what deserves a place in it. You don't need to hide your sensitivity to be respected, nor do you need to appear stronger than you truly feel. Real confidence allows room for both courage and gentleness. Continue honoring your needs, trusting your boundaries, and letting your actions reflect the values you worked so hard to cultivate. If these days feel emotionally full, remember to care for yourself in practical ways as well. Rest when your body asks for it. Spend time outdoors, nourish yourself well, and allow simple routines to support both your physical and emotional well-being. And if work or finances have begun raising new questions, approach them with curiosity instead of urgency. Sometimes the most meaningful opportunities begin the moment we become willing to see familiar paths from a fresh perspective. You may be surprised by how much can begin to shift when you allow yourself to explore a creative passion or a path centered on healing and personal growth. During these July days, your natural Libra strengths, your sense of balance, empathy, thoughtful communication, and appreciation for beauty can become quiet guides as you make decisions about what deserves your time and energy. Rather than asking where you should force progress, consider where life already feels ready to unfold with greater ease. When it comes to relationships, remember that genuine connection doesn't need to be chased. The people who truly belong in your life won't require you to abandon your values or silence your voice in order to keep them close. Let honesty lead your choices instead of urgency, and let self-respect become stronger than the fear of missing an opportunity. What grows from authenticity often develops more slowly, but it also develops with stronger roots. If you'd like a simple symbolic reminder during July 14 and 15, consider surrounding yourself with colors like soft blue for clarity, silver for thoughtful reflection, lavender for emotional balance, or warm ivory as a reminder of inner peace. These colors don't change your future, but they can gently reinforce the mindset you're choosing to cultivate. Let them remind you not of who others expect you to become, but of the person you've already been growing into throughout this year. Life has a way of testing our patience, especially when the results we hope for seem slower than expected. Yet some of the most meaningful changes happen quietly, much like a tree strengthening its roots long before new branches become visible. Continue showing up for yourself, even on the days when progress feels invisible. What you're building within yourself often begins influencing your life long before you can fully recognize the results. As this reflection comes to a close, I simply want to thank you for spending this time here. Your willingness to pause, reflect, and explore these ideas with an open heart helps create a space where meaningful conversations can continue to grow. Every thoughtful comment, every shared experience, and every act of encouragement adds something valuable to this community, and that generosity is deeply appreciated. If today's message resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Write, "I am ready to walk into my truth," and let those words serve as a quiet promise to yourself. A reminder that you're choosing authenticity over fear and clarity over uncertainty. If you found this reflection meaningful, consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who might need these words today, and subscribing to continue exploring future astrology insights together. Libra, your journey doesn't have to follow anyone else's timeline. Mid-year often reminds us that growth isn't measured only by visible milestones, but also by the quiet confidence we've developed along the way. Continue moving forward with balance, compassion, and trust in yourself. The opportunities, relationships, and experiences that truly belong in your life will have the space to meet you as you continue becoming the person you were always meant to be. I look forward to sharing the next reflection with you.